The starliner Halcyon Reach drifted across the silver-blue stretch of the outer rim, its engines humming with the measured calm of a vessel designed for long voyages. On board were diplomats, traders, drifters, officers, students, and scientists, beings from 26 worlds trying to coexist on a ship barely 600 meters long. And then there was Arii. Arii came from a species few in the Galactic Union knew much about. The Valaith, an elusive culture from a humid crystal-covered moon called Valus. Their bodies were delicate, bioluminescent in patterns that shifted with emotion, and their pale lavender skin released a soft, natural, aromatic vapor. To humans it looked a bit like mist. To most other species it looked like a warning. The smell wasn't toxic, wasn't harmful, wasn't even particularly strong, but it was foreign, unreadable, and any scent you couldn't categorize, most travelers decided, was best avoided. So they gave her space. A lot of space. When Arii walked through the Halcyon corridors, conversations paused. People pressed to the walls. Even the ship's cleaning drones ran alternate routes so their sensors wouldn't get clogged with data they didn't know how to interpret. Arii pretended not to notice. Valaith were taught from infancy to glide with dignity no matter the external environment, but inside, she felt every inch of isolation like thin cracks in her chest. She had come to the Halcyon Reach under the banner of cultural exchange. She had expected curiosity, questions, maybe even excitement. What she experienced instead was a kind of subtle exile. All except for one human. His name was Jackson Wells, and he noticed Arii on the 6th day of the voyage, when most passengers were filing into the observatory deck to watch the crimson rings of the planet Letharis. Arii was standing alone by the far window, her shimmering bio-patterns a gentle blue, melancholy. Everyone else formed a semicircle well away from her. Jackson frowned. He wasn't a diplomat or xenologist. He loaded cargo for a living and had taken this passage to start a new contract on the Midway colonies. But he knew loneliness when he saw it. Loneliness had a posture, a rhythm, a way of folding the shoulders just so. He stepped past the crowd until he stood beside her as though the gap between her and everyone else didn't exist. Arii turned slightly, surprised. Her luminous eyes blinked once. "You are standing very close," she said softly, her voice like wind through hollow crystal. "Most folks in here are standing too far," he said. "If you came to see the rings, might as well see them up close." Arii's scent, subtle, warm, faintly floral, reached him. Jackson inhaled without flinching. Her bioluminescence flickered in uncertainty. "My people carry an aroma that troubles others." "Well," Jackson said, leaning against the observation railing, "it's comforting to me." That startled her. No one had ever described her scent as comforting, not even on Valus. "Comforting. Smells like a warm night after rain," he said. "Reminds me of home." Arii didn't know what to do with the sudden warmth blooming in her chest. Humans were unpredictable, but this one had stepped willingly into a space everyone else frantically avoided. They watched the rings in silence. The colors reflected faintly off her bioluminescence. For the first time since she'd boarded, Arii felt visible, not as a curiosity, but as a person. Over the next week, they met in small, quiet corners of the Halcyon. The hydroponics bay after shift hours, the starboard maintenance corridor that overlooked nebulae, the nearly empty dining hall just before its nighttime shutdown. Each time Jackson approached, her aroma brightened. Valaith biochemistry responded to emotion, and yet he never pulled away. He asked questions. Real ones. "What's your world like? Do the patterns on your skin mean something? Does your scent change when you're happy? Or scared?" Arii answered each with gentle patience. She explained how Valaith patterns were part language, part instinct, part mood. How her people used scent trails to communicate emotional nuance that words failed to capture. How she feared she had made a mistake joining this diplomatic voyage, because no one really wanted her there. No one? Jackson asked quietly. She hesitated. No one but you. Jackson felt protective anger rise inside him, not at REI, but at the way the galaxy reacted to anything unfamiliar. Then they're missing out, he said. You're the most fascinating person on this ship. She turned her gaze toward him, and he saw her patterns shift into a soft, radiant gold, a Valethe signal of gratitude so profound it bordered on affection. He didn't say anything then, but he felt something settle in his chest, something warm and startling and new. The turning point came 4 days later, when the Halcyon Reach abruptly dropped out of slipstream. Alarm lights flared. A voice chimed over the ship's intercom. Unscheduled suppression. Hull microfracture detected in Section 14. Section 14 was the cargo ward, Jackson's workspace. He rushed there without hesitation, and REI followed with equal urgency. She didn't know why she followed, only that her patterns pulsed with worry. They found the breach, a spreading crack along the outer hull where a stray shard of drifting asteroid had struck. Emergency stabilizers held, but pressure was dropping. Worse, a container of volatile material was tipping dangerously close to the fracture point. Crew members hesitated at the doorway. The container was emitting unstable energy. The scent from the Valathe's body might accelerate reaction in unknown ways. They didn't want her near it or near them. Jackson ignored their discomfort. REI, your biosensors. Can you detect stress lines? Weak points? Yes, she said, voice steady despite the fear streaking her patterns bright white. My species can see microfractures the way you see shadows. Then I need your eyes. Together they stepped inside the restricted bay. REI crouched by the hull, fingertips near but not touching it, her bioluminescent lines glowing sharply as her senses focused. There, she said after a moment. A triangulated fracture. If you reinforce at these points, the hull will stabilize. Jackson moved quickly, activating emergency patch modules exactly where she indicated. The stabilization spread across the metal like frost in reverse, sealing the breach. But the container still wobbled. REI's patterns burst into alarm. It will fall. Without hesitation, Jackson threw his shoulder into it. Too light a push to damage the volatile contents, but strong enough to set it back into alignment. The container settled. The dangerous hum quieted. The crisis passed. A moment later, the observing crew finally rushed in, chattering with relief. Their eyes went from the sealed hull to REI, not with fear this time but awe. REI stood perfectly still, uncertain. Jackson nudged her gently. Told you they were missing out. Even the chief engineer approached, bowing slightly. Your abilities saved us. The Union would do well to have more Valethe among its fleets. For the first time, no one stepped away from her aroma. No one avoided her presence. REI's patterns flickered a shimmering gold, filling the room with soft light. After the ship resumed its journey, everything changed. People no longer avoided corridors she walked through. Some asked her questions about her abilities. Others thanked her for saving their lives. Slowly, the distance that once surrounded her dissolved. But still, no one drew as close to her as Jackson did. On the final evening before landing on the Midway colonies, REI and Jackson stood alone on the observation deck, the same place where they'd first met. The ship glided toward a glowing frontier world, its surface streaked with silver oceans. My mission was to foster understanding, REI said. But I feared I had failed. You didn't fail, Jackson replied. You just needed someone who wasn't afraid to stand close. She looked at him for a long moment. And you were not. I like being near you, he said simply. Your scent. It still reminds me of home. REI's bioluminescence blossomed into rich gold threaded with pink, the Valet's signal for affection deepening into something stronger. I wish to stay close, she whispered. Not only on this voyage. Jackson's heart thudded. Then stay. The halcyon reach drifted past glittering stars as the alien girl and the human stood shoulder to shoulder, the faint warmth of her scent surrounding them like a promise. For the first time in her life, REI felt that her aroma, once a reason for avoidance, was part of what made her cherished. And for Jackson, the scent of the alien girl would forever be the smell of belonging, possibility, and the beginning of something extraordinary.